Hello everyone, this video is about changing engine oil on a 4-stroke engine. In this video I will explain why oil changes are important and how those best be done. I will also mention what you can do in a pinch when you don't have the best tools or the best information available. We will cover setup, draining and assembly. Let's get started at the beginning. 4-stroke engines can be found on your motorcycle, on your car as well, diesel or gasoline, lawnmowers, ATVs, snowmobiles, dirt bikes, all run on 4-stroke engine, and these 4-stroke engines are different from 2-stroke engines. Okay, there's no oil change on a 2-stroke engine ever. So this is just 4-stroke engines only, and I will demonstrate it on this 1981 Honda. Why oil changes are important, particularly on a motorcycle. Your motorcycle engine runs and wears 2 to 6 times faster than a car engine. Whereas a car engine can putt along in traffic at 2000 RPM, your motorcycle has to run at 4000 RPM to go anywhere, or 6000 RPM if it's a race bike. So right away, in comparison to a car's gasoline engine, motorcycle gasoline engine wears 2 to 3 times as fast, but it can be as high wear as 6 times on expensive race bike engines. So particularly on a motorcycle, oil changes are critical, because there is lots of internal moving components, and they generate a lot of friction, and they generate a lot of wear. They wear 2, 3, as many as 6 times as fast as car engines. So make sure that you change the engine oil according to the manufacturer's specifications. Find the owner's manual and find the data in it that says change engine oil every 4,000 kilometers or 6,000 kilometers or 4,000 miles or whatever it says. Be sure to follow it. Now, what do you do if you just bought a bike and you don't know when the last oil change was done on it? Drain some oil and look at it. If it looks like this, and I'm trying not to spill it on the camera, thereabouts, if it looks like this, black and sedimenty and stinky, it's used oil. If it looks like this, yellow, and you can pretty well see through it, and looks like honey color but very viscous, then it's new. Okay, that's how you can tell fresh engine oil from used old engine oil. And that's basically why oil changes are important. What do you need for oil changes? You need obviously engine oil, and do make sure that it is a motorcycle engine oil, and it should say motorcycle on it, motorcycle oil on it there. You also have to make sure, the reason for specific motorcycle oil for motorcycles is because the motorcycle's clutch runs in the same engine oil, not the same for cars. On a car, the clutch runs in a totally different compartment than the engine components. So on a bike, it's all the same. So make sure, you have to make sure that the clutch doesn't slip, and don't just put in any kind of car oil in your engine crankcase on a motorcycle. Make sure to put in proper motorcycle engine oil that says so, and ideally you get this from your dealer, motorcycle oil. Also make sure that your viscosity numbers, this one is 10W40, your viscosity numbers, here is your 10W40 on it. Make sure those numbers match your temperature range that you operate the equipment in. If it's a snowmobile, it has to work in sub-zero temperatures. If it's a bike in California, it has to work in the heat of the day. Make sure your oil viscosity numbers match your driving operating temperature range. Okay, that's what those are for. So we've got oil covered. You also need a handy funnel for filling in oil up top. the fresh oil. You will also need a new oil filter, and for contrast, here is the old oil filter that I removed. You can see what a difference, the filthy one and the clean one. You need new oil filters, and if you have this kind of oil filter, it's the same idea. The folded paper is inside here, where I cut away some of the sidewall of this oil filter, so you can see this indeed has been used, and throw it away. Take the used oil and the used filter back to the dealer where they can dispose of safely. Please don't just pour it down the drain anywhere, okay? The oil filters come with a seal. These are the new seals, and the oil filter was in it. Make sure you get your seals from the manufacturer, okay? Don't be cheap on this one. If you get a bad filter or a bad seal that doesn't quite fit your bike, and 20 minutes after the oil change you lose all your engine oil from your crankcase, it's a heart attack. And if you're stranded on the roadside, you're gonna have to push the bike back to town or some such thing, and it's no fun whatsoever. So proper seal, proper filter, and make sure you change the oil with the filter, okay? Every single time. Now, if you don't have a filter and you really must change the engine oil, sure, just change the engine oil, and put back the old filter. But take out the filter, drain the old oil from it the best you can, and then put it back on if you don't have a new filter. But it's just in a pinch. The bike will work better than before with the used oil, but it's not a happy situation, because the filter, your old filter, will contaminate your new oil in about 2 minutes time. So do change the filter with the oil. And new seals on this kind of bike. Okay, so the seal that comes on this canister type is mounted on the edge of the canister, is taken care of. But on this kind of filters, the seals go around here, because this whole thing comes out from the engine as one unit. And there's one more seal that goes on the base of the bolt here, this black seal here, and it needs to be changed. So because it comes with the filter, do change it. So we've got new oil, we've got filter, we've got a funnel. What else do we need? Oh, we need a couple of these rags, okay, for cleaning up or making sure you're not poisoning the environment much with this oil change business. And lastly, you need two tools typically. You need one for the filter and one for the drain plug. Now, if you have this kind of filter, you will need a special filter wrench that goes around the perimeter like so, and grabs the filter that way. If you have this kind of filter, just put a socket on it. When you do that, I usually recommend that you put on a 6-point socket as opposed to a 12-point socket, because the 6-point socket here grabs the bolts better on a greater surface than a 12-point socket. The 12-point socket has a lesser contact area with the bolt and might round off the corners on the drain plug or on the filter bolt. So when the corners are rounded off, they can be removed with a vice grips or pliers, or you can hack it out somehow, but how you gonna put it back? It's a problem. So the best you can, please grab a 6-point socket of proper size for the drain plug and for the filter as well. Another thing, if you're using sockets, make sure that they rotate counterclockwise for removal, okay? So set the head on it so that okay, this one is tightening it. There, that's removal. Make sure, because it's grabbing this way, grabbing counterclockwise, grabbing it counterclockwise. Okay, so make sure that you are set for removal, because if you rotate the already tightened bolt, drain bolt in the engine the wrong direction, it will strip the thread in your crankcase. This is a steel bolt and your engine is a cast aluminum alloy. Cast aluminum is about half as strong as the steel bolt, so the threads on this one will be unscathed, but the threads on the engine block will be all stripped out. If your threads are stripped out on the engine crankcase down there, you cannot possibly put a new bolt in without remachining the surfaces for attaching a new bolt. It's a nightmare, and helicoiling. So make sure that your socket is rotating the correct direction for removal counterclockwise. So that's all you need for an oil change. The oil, the proper oil, a funnel, a rag for cleanup, 2 wrenches, and oil filter with seals. That's what you need. Now, draining the oil. Oh, sorry, one last word about the socket. If you only have a pair of pliers or open-ended wrench, or maybe a closed-ended wrench, if it's the proper size, they work, but try to avoid rounding off the corners on the bolt, because it is a headache when you do so. Draining the oil next. Take out the dipstick, and the only reason for it is that the oil in the crankcase will drain faster. That's all there is to it. If it's got a little air hole here, it just drains faster. Remove the oil filter bolt, and this is how it looks like when it's assembled. There, that's what you see from the underside. So put the socket on it and remove the filter assembly either that way, or just remove the whole canister and put an ice cream bucket or something under it to catch the oil, and then totally remove the oil drain bolt. The drain bolt oil will not start leaking until all of the threads are removed. So when 3/4 of the bolt is sticking out, it's still not letting the oil just go from your crankcase. You have to totally remove it. That's when it will start shooting some oil out. So be ready only at the very last thread for catching the oil with the bucket. So that's removal. Fairly simple. Remove 2 things: the filter and the drain bolt. Okay, that's the third one, but that's just more like loosening the dipstick on it. For assembly, the filter assembles, like I said. Change the seal on it, on the drain bolt here, and moisten it a little bit with fresh engine oil, and this one just clips in. Oh, this one is a 1981 CM400T, if you're wondering. And then I've got a spring that goes on here, and on top of the spring you have a flat washer, and on top of the flat washer you put the new filter, and you press them together, and it's good to go for assembly. Put the socket on it and put it in place. For the drain bolt, it doesn't need anything other than inspecting this washer. This washer should be nice, and let me just wipe it off quickly, and because I will explain it in a sec. This washer should be nice, and I don't know if you can see it. It is a compression washer with a little bit of the aluminum, soft aluminum, displaced there on it. I hope you can see it with the camera, but this is supposed to seal this is to provide a seal around the drain hole on your engine crankcase. So this washer is important, and don't over tighten this bolt when you assemble it. Like I said, rotating it the wrong way will destroy the engine. Over tighten it will also destroy the engine just the same way. Same applies to the filter. Now on this canister type of filter, or on this one, moisten the seal with a little bit of engine oil, and you can read the instructions on the filter. This one says tighten one turn when the gasket contacts the base. Oh, sorry, after gasket contacts the base. So you spin it on, and when the gasket just touches the base, from then on it's one full turn and it's done with this one. Pretty much the same applies to this one, except you don't know when exactly the seal touches the base because it's harder to see. That's why you have torque wrenches, and in an ideal condition you would look up the torque specifications for the filter bolt as well as the drain bolt, wherever I put the drain bolt now, as well as the torque specifications for the drain bolt, and make sure that they are not over tightened. Now if you don't have a torque wrench and if you don't have a manual, what do you do in the middle of the road? Or no, on the roadside, sorry, in the middle of nowhere? And then you just finger tighten it, and from then on just an itty bit more with a wrench, and you take a look at it and see if it leaks. If it's holding good, it doesn't need any more torque. If it leaks out one drop, wipe it off and check it in another 2 minutes time. If it's still leaking just one drop, it needs just an itty bit of tightening, just a super small amount with the wrench, just an itty bit, okay? So don't over tighten it and over torque it, because if you do, the threads will rip out and they will fail on the crankcase side, okay? And it's a big problem. Lastly, I want to show you where the location of the drain bolts typically are placed, and that's a handheld shot. So come on around here and take a look at this one here. On the underside of a motorcycle, typically the oil drain bolt is at the lowest point in the crankcase. It goes here. Oh, I found it. It was on the brake pedal. So it goes in here, and you can see here is where the oil filter goes. All the surfaces has been cleaned to make sure that they are the surface is made properly, and it's also important that you clean the threaded portion on the filter bolt there, and also on the drain bolt. All of the threads should be pristine, clean, so because I don't want to introduce any impurities into the engine crankcase. And from here on, these two bolts that were removed, they just go back in. Let's see if I can do it with only one hand and the other hand holding the camera. The extremely important thing here is that you don't cross thread it, and it should go in just like so, super easily with finger tight like so. And from here on, just turn it with a wrench a little bit, just very little, the least you can, the best, if you don't have a proper torque wrench. The same goes with the oil filter. It's got this notch on it that meets that index pin there, and they should go in there together, but I cannot do it with only one hand. So basically that covers the setup, the draining and the assembly. Take good care of your engines, and I wish you well in your motorcycling.